This is the aftermath of the story of King Lavana. He was hypnotized by a juggler, and within the course of an hour the king experienced a whole lifetime of events living with a very unfortunate tribe. And he had a family, and the family, or the tribe, eventually experienced terrible drought and suffering. In fact, his whole life was one of suffering. But it all happened within the course of 1 hour. It was supposed to be a hallucination. Vasistha continued. The day after his hallucinatory experience, King Lavana thought, I should actually go to those places that I saw in the vision. Perhaps they exist in reality. Immediately he set out with his retinue and proceeded in a southerly direction. Soon he came across the very scenes of his vision and the type of people whom he had seen then. He met the very people whom he knew during his existence as a tribesman. He even saw his own destitute children. In the vision, the king was driven to such despair that he actually took his own life. So these children are now destitute. He saw there an old woman who was weeping and screaming in agony. Oh, my beloved husband, where have you gone, leaving us all here? I have lost my beautiful daughter, who had an extraordinary stroke of luck to obtain a handsome king for her husband. Where have they all gone? Alas, I have lost all of them. The king approached her, consoled her, and learnt from her that she was indeed the mother of his tribal wife. Out of compassion he gave them enough wealth to meet their needs and to help them out of the drought that had stricken the whole countryside, even as he had seen the day before. He dwelt among them for some time and then returned to his palace. The next morning the king asked me to explain the mystery and was fully satisfied with my answer. O Ram, thus the power of nescience is capable of creating a total confusion between the real and the unreal. Ram asked, O sage, this is indeed puzzling. How can that which was seen in a dream or a hallucination be also experienced in the reality of the waking state? It might seem that the Yoga Vasistha has taken us one step too far here. The king experienced a hallucination, and yet it turned out that he actually lived that life. Within the space of 1 hour, he lived that life in the same reality that he's living now. Is the Yoga Vasistha taking this too far? Or do we have a problem with this because of our conviction that there's an external world out there, a relatively stable external world, which somehow has got nothing to do with us? That external world is following fixed physical laws. It's inert. And we carry on our affairs within it, perhaps managing to exercise a little bit of control here and there to turn events to our satisfaction. That's the basic belief that we have, isn't it? And that's the belief that the Yoga Vasistha is soundly knocking on the head. Vasistha answered, But, O Ram, all this is ignorance. The notions of far and near, a moment and eternity are all hallucinations. Moment and eternity, these are notions of time. There's only now, there's only here. And there's the notions of far and near to do with distance. There's only here. It's all here. Notions of space, notions of time are all hallucination. In ignorance, the real appears to be unreal, and the unreal seems to be real. The individualized consciousness perceives what it thinks it perceives on account of its condition, on account of its conditioning. On account of ignorance, when the notion of egotism arises, at that very moment the delusion of a beginning, a middle and an end also arises. One who is thus deluded thinks that he is an animal and experiences this. All this happens on account of accidental coincidence, just as a crow flies towards a coconut palm, and as it alights on the tree, a fruit falls. A fruit falls down as if the crow dislodged it, though in fact the crow did not. Similarly, by pure coincidence and in ignorance, the unreal seems to be real. Yes, so what we're looking at is, well, why do we have this notion of an external world? Why is it all there? We seem to perceive certain sequences of events. It's saying here that along with the notion of an individual self, we get notions of beginning, middle and end. And the fact that these notions arise together is simply coincidence. There's no cause and effect. The writer Alan Watts often mentions the instance of looking at a cat through a gap in a wall. First of all, the cat's walking by, so first of all you see the head, and then after a short distance of time you see the tail. And if you've never seen a cat before, then you might say, well, this tail always appears after the head, therefore the head must cause the tail. But it's just a cat walking by. Depending on how we look at things, we see certain causes and certain effects, but it's all just a coincidence. It's all just the one thing going on. But more importantly, what about this experience of the king? He experienced his hallucination, and it turned out that he actually lived this life. Well, that's explored a bit more in the next chapter.